Hi, I'm Barrett. This is Margaret Alfrey, and
Hi.
we're here with Lorri Jean.
And Lorri Jean, one of the things I wanted to, the reason I'm here, one of the things I wanted to say is that I am so impressed with the job that you did for the center.
Oh,
I'm
well,
blown
I had a
away.
lot of help, but thank you very much.
Well, I think you provided such a CEO head direction that the center now looks like something all of us in the gay world can be stunned and appreciative of.
It's
I really-
it's a testament to a CEO head, and it's also a testament to this incredibly generous Los Angeles community that has just supported this organization from the very beginning and has risen to the occasion every time we've asked.
Well, I'm telling you, I was totally wowed.
I joined her in that.
Well, I've always wanted to say how impressed I was.
Thank you, Marge. That's so nice of you.
Of course, I'm ready for you to run for governor, so
My wife would divorce me.
that's momentary. Anyway, it's February 15th, 2022, the day after Valentine's Day. And I'm here with Lorri Jean, and I'm honored. We are honored to have you as
Thank
part
you.
of our collection. And I'm glad you have that background because I tell people, now I talk to people all over the United States and Canada. I tell them about your development.
Oh,
They can see it. It's good. Yeah.
great.
So when you come to Los Angeles, this is what you want to look for.
Yeah.
We are proud of you. So this is a legacy project, as you know, and you're in transition, which is a good time to talk about your legacy, I think. And I'd like to say, what's your greatest adventure so far in your life?
Oh my goodness, in my life. I guess I'd have to say the greatest adventure has been my time at the helm of the center. I went to law school. I was an attorney. I thought my life was going to go in a certain direction. And I got hooked on volunteer activism and decided that I was having a lot more fun doing that than I was being a lawyer. And so I decided I wanted to work for the movement. And I didn't know anything about the LA Center. I was thinking more of being on the national stage, and through a variety of weird avenues, ended up in LA and at the center. And it's just been an amazing adventure. I mean, from, we were an $8 million organization with one location, 125 staff when I started. And that was one of the biggest LGBTQ organizations that there was at the time. And now.
What year was that?
1993.
Okay.
And today we're 155 million. We have 10 locations all over town. And we're pre-COVID, we're serving well over 50,000 client visits every single month. And every kind of program, whatever my interest might be at any moment, the center's got it. So it's been quite an adventure.
It shows that too.
Yeah.
Really. Where were you born?
I was born in Boise, Idaho. My folks were farmers. They both came from homesteaders in Idaho. And so my dad was farming in Idaho in the summers and in Arizona in the winters. And by the time I got to be of school age, I was the eldest of this set of three. They had to settle and decide where I was going to go to school. So they settled in Arizona. So that's really where I grew up.
So Marge is from California, but she was raised in Vail, Oregon.
Oh.
So we've been to Boise in transit.
Yes. Well, my mother's people were homesteaders in Eastern Oregon in the Nissa area.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And then do you have siblings?
I do. We have his, hers, and theirs. My folks were both married before and had kids from those relationships. And then they met each other. And I'm the eldest of three of this set. And then the closest sibling to me is 11 years older than me, and that's my sister. So I have a younger brother and then a younger sister.
Going to law school, was that something that was always on your agenda?
Well, not always. I grew up on a farm. And so first I decided, I think that I wanted to be a veterinarian. And my father told me that that really wasn't a good thing. First of all, it was sort of a man's job. My dad was a reflection of his time.
Mhm.
And then he said,
A nice way of putting it.
right, you'd only be able to work with dogs and cats, and that's not the fun stuff. And yet the irony is, as the oldest kid on a farm family, he had me out there working with the livestock and doing all this stuff until I went through puberty. And then suddenly he was feeling like maybe his daughter shouldn't be out there on the farm with all the hired
Yeah.
hands.
Really?
So then we actually had an experience when I was in junior high school. We were raising pigs at that time and raising the crops necessary to feed them. And my dad had struggled my whole life with farming disasters. As my mother would have said, we never had a pot to pee in, or we wouldn't have two nickels to rub together, she would say. And finally, an old friend of his married Amanda Blake from Gunsmoke. And she wanted an investment. So she invested in our farm. And my dad developed the largest pork producing operation west of the Mississippi. We had 5,000 head of pigs. And we would buy 6-week-old feeder pigs from the Midwest, ship them in, feed them out, and then sell them to Cudahy Bar S. We were their biggest supplier. And we brought in a load of pigs, baby pigs that had cholera. And back then, during the Nixon administration, they were trying to get rid of cholera. And so they said that they would kill every pig that was ever exposed to cholera, and the state would pay for half and the feds would pay for the other half.
Wow.
And so by the time we discovered we had cholera in our herd, and the state came out and they looked at this 5,000 head of hogs, and it was the highest pork had ever been. And so the state said, well, we're not going to pay. We don't have any money. And so to make a long story short, we lost our farm. And we lost our home. How my dad ever managed to convince somebody to let him have 5 acres out in the desert and to get a mobile home to put on it so he had some place to put his family, I don't know. Except for he was a great salesman, that's for sure. And that's when I decided I was going to become a lawyer, because that was wrong. That was injustice. And I looked at how injustices got corrected and how the laws got changed. And it was people in politics, and everybody in politics was a lawyer back then. So that's sort of how I went down that path.
So was this after puberty that you made this decision?
Yeah, this was. And so my dad didn't think being a lawyer was a woman's job either, but my mother was totally supportive, and my dad actually was too, although my mom told me that when I left to go to law school, I went back east to go to law school, that he said to her, well, I hope she isn't just going to find a husband. And because it was, cost a lot of money. And of course, it wouldn't have been much longer before he would have wished I'd gone to find a husband.
So your mother was really important to you. You mentioned that in your photos.
Absolutely. My mom was my best friend in life and was my biggest fan. And she and I just had a fantastic connection. I'm close to everybody in my family, but I was especially close to her.
I can see in the photo that you sent of the two of you, and I said, who took that? Did your partner take that?
Well, she might have taken, I forget which one I sent you now, but she might have taken some of the ones when my mom was older.
It was a very nice photo, but I could see that she really trusted the person taking the picture.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It was
Yeah.
it was a 3-way connection.
Yeah.
It was interesting. So, and then law school?
Then
What
law
time
school.
Did you decide that you weren't going to be looking for a husband?
Yes. Well, I came out my last semester of college. And of course, I didn't tell anybody. At first I thought I would never tell anybody.
Mhm.
It was a traumatic experience for me for a little while, but I got over it pretty quickly.
Mhm.
And so then I went back to law school and actually got involved with my first lover back in law school. It was a big transition moving from Arizona, having grown up on a farm, to go to Washington, D.C. I was a hit from the sticks, and it sure showed. And the Eastern culture was so different than being a Westerner. But it was a great experience. I loved Washington. I stayed there for 10 years and met a lot of wonderful people. And ultimately, my experience there in activism is what ultimately led me to the center.
Did you participate a lot in activism when you were in college?
I did. When I was in college, I was involved with student government, and I was the head of the campus Women's Affairs Board, which was the feminist student
I was
group.
going to say, interesting name.
Yes. Well, of course, this was in the early 70s, and I don't even know how it got that name. Probably it got that name before feminism was as strong as it was by the time I took over. And in college, I led the battle to get full-time gynecological care on campus and birth control prescribed on campus. We had 17,000 women students then at Arizona State University, and they had a gynecologist coming to the campus health center a half a day every other week, and they wouldn't prescribe birth control. And so I led that battle, and it was successful. The Board of Regents were very conservative, Mormons and Catholics, but ultimately we prevailed. And my dad, bless his heart, I was on all the TV stations. Back then there were only really 3, talking about birth control and why this was important. And my dad sat me down when I went to visit him one weekend and asked me to not talk about that on TV, because if I talked about birth control on TV, people were going to think I used it. And, and again, it wasn't very many years later that he would have prayed for me to be using birth control.
He had his different outlook on things.
Well, yes. And, what did people know back then about homosexuality? If they knew anything
Well, they
at all,
didn't talk about it. We don't know what they know.
That's right. That's right. Didn't talk about it. And if they did know anything, it was probably some, horrible stereotype or myth. And I know that my folks, when I came out to them, they were pretty quick to get to the place where they didn't think there was anything wrong with me, but they were worried that my life was going to be difficult.
I've heard that.
Yeah.
That's a common response. It's a nice one, actually.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thoughtful, very thoughtful. Yeah. At what point did you personally know that you were a lesbian?
Well, not until my last semester of college. I was very ignorant about those kinds of things. Now, in retrospect, I can tell, I fell in love with my best friend in high school, and in junior high, I remember having a dream about my best friend that we got married. And I woke up and, I wanted it to be true. But I remember saying to myself, wait a minute, girls can't marry girls. No. So finally, my last semester of college, I came to the realization, in part because a professor tried to set me up with another woman.
Really? How thoughtful.
Yes, very thoughtful. She just presumed I was a dyke, because of course I was. I looked like one. And so she tried to set me up, and that set me on this self-examination about, what did this mean? And was I really a lesbian? And, and then I decided, yes, I clearly was, even though I hadn't been involved with anybody yet. It resonated with me.
So is introspection one of your strong points? That was very
I would say so, and at times a weak point. Sometimes I worry too much about what other people think, but I do try in the way that it's a strong point. I do try to think a lot about how I behave in the world, and when I make mistakes, to apologize and try to correct them. So
Where will you go from leaving the center? I know you told me you're going to Maui.
yes, my wife and I are gonna make Maui our permanent residence. You know, I don't have a pension from working at the center, and
You don't? Huh,
no, you know, hardly any nonprofits have pensions, right?
I didn't think of that. Wow.
So we couldn't really afford to keep two places. And we had the place here in LA, and we bought the condo in Maui years ago, and it's been in the rental program. And we just decided, you know, we want to spend 5 or 6 months a year there, and we want to spend 3 or 4 months a year in LA, and we want to travel. So let's sell the house in LA, which we did in September, and we'll make Maui our permanent location. And when we're in LA in the summers, we'll rent an Airbnb or something like that.
Sounds like a good plan.
I hope so, as long as our wanderlust and our bodies and our money last. We hope to do a lot of travel.
And your wife?
She retired at the end of
Huh?
December.
Really?
She's she's a little bit ahead of me, and she was an attorney for the California Court of Appeal. And before that, she was a partner in a downtown law firm. And so she's getting ready before I am. And as of July 1, I'll be retired as well.
That's amazing, isn't it?
Yes. You know, for people who have worked hard their whole lives, it's going to be interesting. I'm not really worried. A lot of my friends are worried, and they say, oh,
Are you?
yeah, you'll never be able to retire, Lorri, because they've seen how all-consuming and how this job has been and what a passion it's been for me. But I have other things I want to do.
What's your dream for the future? Do you have one? Besides retiring in Maui?
Well, you mean for me or for the future at large?
Both.
Well, I'll answer for the future at large first. I feel very worried about the future right now. I'm an eternal optimist, which has been a great asset to me in this movement work. But I feel very concerned about the polarization in our society and the fate of our democracy, and that people are not paying attention to the facts and are ignoring science. And you know, I worry about what that means for our society. I certainly worry about what it means for queer people. But my hope for the future is that people will come to the realization that no matter our political views, we have so much more in common than we do that divides us. And that
It's very distant right now, doesn't it?
Yeah, it
Yeah,
does.
I agree with that.
And for myself, my hope for the future is that I live a long and healthy life. My folks both lived into their 90s, and
Great.
I'd like to do the same.
I can see you doing that.
I hope so.
Well, we're retired, and I can tell you, when you've been active working, I actually interned at the center on Highland
Wow, you did.
many years ago, right?
Wow, that in the STD
Counseling.
clinic there?
In the counseling department.
Oh,
We
in the
did
counseling
groups there.
department. Oh, wow. Well, you know, we still have a robust mental health internship program today.
It was wonderful. It was a great opportunity for me. But to see that be the center, and the word lesbian wasn't even in the
Yeah.
word at that time. And then what you've created, what a change. Magnificent.
Yeah, it's you would hardly recognize today's center from the one you went to on Highland.
You
I
can't.
interviewed
No
in that building, so I remember.
No comparison, right? So what advice would you like to give a young woman who's energetic and deciding to not necessarily agree with her father, but wants a career? And what's the step?
Well, you know, I think that I would advise her to figure out her passion and follow it.
I like that.
And I've known so many people who've made a heck of a lot more money than I have, who have had jobs that have made them unhappy.
Right.
And I've been so blessed to have a job that I've been in love with, and everybody ought to have that.
It's good. And if you knew that you were going to die shortly, what would you like to be remembered for?
Oh, wow. You know, I would say that one of the things that I've tried to do is to mentor other people in our movement and to share both the wealth of my experience and the lessons I've learned from my many mistakes. And I would like to be remembered for being generous of spirit in that way, and helping many other leaders succeed.
That's great.
You're from Boise.
Yes, well, at least I spent my toddler years there.
Well, I spent most of my school years up till through high school in Vail, which is about 20 miles from Nissa.
Yeah.
Right, that's the jut out of the mountain time zone.
Right. Well, now, what did your folks do?
My father was basically owned a ranch or a farm,
Okay.
and but he became the county sheriff for like 12 years, 16 years.
I see.
So most of the time I was growing up, he was the county sheriff.
And were they homesteaders?
No,
No.
we started in Los Angeles, and when the Second World War got active, the family moved out into that area because they figured they'd never drop a bomb there.
Oh.
Population, one person per square mile.
Right. Really?
They're not
Wow. What
gonna
a
waste-
change from LA to Vail. Most people do it the other way around.
I know. Well, I moved back after I finished school.
Right. Well, how old were you when you moved up there?
3 or 4.
Okay, so you're just a little
4.
kid then. So yeah, so gosh, my mom graduated from Nissa High School,
Wow.
and my grandma spent probably the last 30 years of her life living in Nissa, and it's sort of a dying town, I'm afraid.
I don't know.
All the kids, all the younger people have moved to get decent jobs because it's all been agriculture and
Yeah.
so
Well, and agriculture is a difficult life.
yeah, absolutely.
I remember standing on top of the truck feeding the animals, and they fed them corn silage, which is just a foul smelling, nasty stuff. And you're
Yeah.
standing up there, and the sun hasn't come up yet. And the doctor drove by in his Cadillac with his fur coat and fur hat. And I said, I'm going to do that.
That's what. Wow. Well, so you had to be, one of the few women in going to medical school then, right? Because even, I'm a little bit younger than you, but even when I was in law school, the medical school didn't have a ton of women.
No, our class was the largest class ever at the University of Oregon, because there was a little bit of activism,
Yeah.
Title IX, and some of that was going about. So we had 5 in our class, and I can tell a story.
Yeah.
Okay.
Of course.
When I grew up, I was swimming, doing a lot of teaching, lifeguarding, and I taught adults in the evening, $2.50 a lesson,
Wow.
10 in a class. So I made a lot of money,
Yeah.
or was making enough money to pay for my way through school.
Mhm.
And one afternoon, a woman came in and she said, I want you to teach me how to swim. And I said, well, no, at my house, I know you make $25 an hour. I will pay you that. So I go up to this big, beautiful house, and teach this woman how to swim. And I went back to school, and I started getting my little black book out because women would call me to teach them how to swim. So when I was ready for personal references to medical school, I had the mayor of Portland, state Senate Majority Leader, and the governor of the state as personal representative.
Oh, my goodness.
I wasn't taking any chances.
Yes, absolutely not. Wow.
It was because I taught their wives how to swim.
Wow.
It
Wow.
was a powerful transition.
Yes. Oh, I'll bet.
I went to a 50th anniversary and I watched the face of the dean of the school when I gave that story, and his eyes just went big. He would have let me in too. So it does pay. I had an opportunity to go to law school, but I'd sat in court enough to see the judges. They're not going to listen to a woman attorney. You'd have to go somewhere other than the courtroom. I don't know if it's that way today, but it certainly was.
Oh, it's a lot better, but even when I was a young lawyer, the judges were very sexist,
Yeah.
mistreated women. But yeah, you were a real pioneer, and then you guys ended up in Santa Maria.
You're right.
Yes, I decided to go into private practice. And I knew how to, at that point, doctors and lawyers did not advertise.
Yeah.
So I knew how to get known in a small town. I knew how to do that. So I leased a rather unusual car,
Excalibur.
an Excalibur, and I'd drive it through town to my office, both there and back. And within 3 weeks, everybody in town knew who I was.
Well, now, were you guys together then?
Yes.
Yes.
So here you are, this lesbian couple, you're moving to this community, and I've only known Santa Maria in the last 25 years since we've been riding through it on the AIDS ride. But it's not exactly a bastion of queer openness and acceptability. So how did you find it?
Well, I had an anesthesiologist friend whose brother was an internist there. They said they didn't have enough orthopedists. So,
But I mean, how did people treat you guys? Did you feel like you had to keep it a secret, or were
no,
you
wide open from
They've
step
never
one.
kept it a secret.
The law changed in 67? No, 76, where they couldn't take your license away because you were homosexual.
Yeah, 73. Yeah.
So that allowed me the opportunity just to step out.
Yeah.
Other
Wow,
than
you guys are brave. You were brave. And then there must have been a whole community that you found there, I would presume.
no,
Really?
really. I don't even know if there's a community there now.
One of our interviews is Barbara Beck, who was a judge there, and she was fairly out, but not totally out, she and her partner.
God, I would think that
It's a
there would
very,
be sort of
very,
an underground one. Huh.
it's a very, very closeted community. Very right-wing sort of place. I don't know. It just it's a good community, but it's back.
But for a
back
long
to
time,
your-
I worked here counseling and she was there. And then the earthquake of 94 made a change in our life because I said, I'm alone in bed. She's in Santa Maria. I'm in Los Angeles. So I decided to close my practice 6 months later. Then I did that. We went to Santa Maria. We were always back and forth. We worked together. I'm an operating room nurse also. I'm not a good first assistant because I wanted to see what was going on, but I needed some correcting there. But it was wonderful that we could work together. And then when I came to Santa Maria full time, we had the opportunity to help someone out and we adopted a child.
The life that has come from the time I got out of high school to the present day is just unbelievable. I mean,
oh, absolutely. Even, when you guys were getting, in college or getting out of grad school and I was doing it, none of us could have imagined
no,
the progress that would be made. I mean, it's just stunning.
just the freedom to be able to practice your specialty of life and not have somebody throw you in jail because you have a lifestyle partner who's the same sex.
Right.
Amazing.
We've interviewed several women now that were, they lied. They were asked when they were applying for a job at a university about their sexual preference. This was
Oh, wow.
in the 60s. And they asked, they said that they were not lesbian.
Wow. So they were actually asked.
Mhm, mhm.
And had
Homosexual was the word.
yeah, and if you said yes, you were out of the job.
They wouldn't have gotten the job. They were just,
Amazing.
so I'm learning a lot. I like this discovery about the laws and influence of people, and
Yeah.
it's been a wonderful experience.
But it's amazing that you just sort of went through life doing what you wanted to do,
Uh,
and you were 20 years ahead of the game.
Well, right. And of course, having a good education that enabled you to each have a career, gave you more privilege than a lot of people have. But I think about the number of people I know who are in situations not unlike yours, who just went through life as though they had a right to be.
Yeah.
mhm.
And, that's contributed to the foundation that has led to where we are today, for sure.
Mhm.
So.
Asking permission doesn't work too well.
That's right.
I think we just never thought of why not.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, now, how were your families? Your folks about your,
As far as the adoption,
no, our relationship.
about our relationship,
yeah.
my father thinks Marge is great.
And I think he's great.
Right.
So your dad's still alive?
Nope.
Oh,
he's
okay.
not,
All right.
but he was. My mother, not comfortable with it. She thought I was not leading the life that God wanted for me.
Yeah, yeah.
And she was not a religious person, but she
Used that.
got religion
Yeah.
to make that statement.
Mhm.
So she always, it was a struggle for her. And having a child, she was very opposed to that.
Mhm.
But, and the child came to us through my sister. So it was one of those very entangled.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Which they probably both always are.
Right.
Yeah.
And, but, we traveled, March. I took March home with me for Christmas, and that was it.
And so how many
I'm from
total
the
years have you guys
Midwest.
been together?
I'm sorry?
How many total
40
years have you been together now?
45 years.
All right. Fantastic.
I know.
We'd fly to Chicago for Christmas, and then after Christmas, we'd fly to Boise to go to my parents at Vail.
Yeah, yeah.
And my father was sort of rude about it because he wanted grandchildren.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we're very honored to have you be a part of this.
Yes.
Thank you for asking me.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, you guys.
Okay. Sorry
Bye.
for the
Bye-bye.
technical. Bye.